So something interesting just got sent over to me over on the Discord. I had somebody share this. It was actually Forged Horizons shared it. As you can see, another one for our local financial expert, Luke. CIG, Star Citizen peeps, officially put out their full 2023 financials that break down income expenditure for the year. Notably here, they did wind up losing money in 2023 rather than gaining, despite still hitting record numbers. And this is, as you can see here, this is this full report. And I actually did go through it. It's interesting, even though it's posted May 2nd, it's the financials for 2023. So it's a bit delayed, but there are some interesting tidbits in here that I thought I would touch on kind of quickly, because they have some, initial, like, really good sounding stuff. Like here, income grew again, up 9% to 143 million, with regular sales up 5%, subscriptions up 23%, and other income up 50%. The latter owing to both the acquisition of Turbulent and a change in our operations as we intensified development in the UK. However, our costs also grew considerably, arising from many strategic and tactical decisions that impacted during the last year. Our cost, this is crazy, increased by 26% to $163 million, driven by increased UK-led development, dedication of resources to Squadron 42, acquisition of Turbulent and adding those roughly 200 people to our and overhead to our cost base, and largest CitizenCon ever in LA to showcase improvements. Thus, despite increasing our top-line income by $12 million, we delivered a $14 million loss before CapEx and $20 million loss after for the year, using our simple cost accounting basis. And I mean, they go into a lot more detail on all of this, but what's clear is that there was a big shift that happened. Yeah, this should scare you. What's interesting is that late last year, I believe it was, Cloud Imperium and RSI, Robert Space Industries, the guys behind Star Citizen, they announced that they were switching it up. They were actually moving a lot of managers around. They were restructuring. They were doing a ton of things that just seemed surprising, because typically they've been kind of slow and steady wins the race. They've been really slow on progress. I mean, again, the first fundraising thing for Star Citizen was back in 2012. It's been 13 years and the game is still not done yet. It's way bigger than it was initially expected to be, but it's still in the works. And since then, they've raised over $800 million, okay? $800 million through their funding stats page, okay? Absolute madness. Crazy amounts of money have been raised for this game. And as they announced here, for their year 2023, as they disclosed here, they're actually losing money at this point, despite raising $800 million. And when they shuffled up a lot of their leadership last year, it was either early this year or late last year, but when they shuffled it up, it was a clear sign that they wanted to make a change. They needed to shift something around. And it seems as though that was done in order to just get the damn thing done. They needed to get Squadron 42 out. They needed to make progress. They needed to actually see this thing through. And it's interesting that it's taken this long for them to finally say, screw it, we just need to figure this out. But as you can see in their work in progress footage from 6 months ago, it does look like they've made a lot of progress on Squadron 42. It actually looks like a game now. It looks real. And I think there's a lot of positive things. The little face model swapping, I forgot about this. Yeah, watch. His face model just completely swaps. I appreciate that it's real gameplay footage instead of something faked. But they just swap face models entirely. What? I think it also happens to the guy in the background too. You see, his face also changes. So I think everybody's face models changed. It's just weird. But anyway, weird face model swaps aside. Oh, and it swaps back. I think that they just need to get it done. And it's clear at this point that the money that's coming in is starting to slow a bit. And if they keep their dev team as big as it currently is, if they keep their expenses as high as they currently are, they will start to plummet into bankruptcy very, very quickly. The further out you extend and leverage, the easier it is for things to fall apart. The old example that my finance professor, Professor Sanning, always gave was, he was like, if you're going to try to keep your arms taut, you keep them close to your body, right? Like if you're going to try to brace up against, two walls and you're between the walls and you just want to hold yourself up, you're going to go like this, use your elbows and keep it close to you because you're not super leveraged out there. It's closer to your body. It's easy. He's like, if you hold something like your arm straight out at your side, it doesn't take a lot of weight or force to pull you down, to pull it all the way down. Because once you overextend, you're over leveraged, a little bit of weight can tear you down real quick. And that's what happens with a lot of companies, is that they expand too quickly, they expand like crazy, and then things go bad for a year or two, and they can't pay everybody's salaries, they can't pay for the leases, everything just implodes because they extended out way, way too far, and they became really weak as a result. And I think a similar thing has been happening with CIG and with RSI just in general, with all of the stuff they've been trying to do, is that they've expanded a ton. They've made acquisitions like of Turbulent. They've done a lot of stuff like that, but like in terms of actual revenue sources, it's not significantly changed. It's kind of the same old, and they are seeing increased like development costs. As you can see here in 2023, contracted game development costs rose to $12.4 million, a 15% increase. The rest of the world region, headed by the UK, leads all development activities, including Turbulent development that was previously managed out of the US. And then you see other things like they threw this CitizenCon that they did. They have other things, CapEx and investments. As you can see, year over year, it's been kind of slow and steady, where, you know, the blue is the salaries. Purple is other dev costs, which is partially like, you know, contract work, or actually the contract is in the blue. So purple is things like, you know, the new team that they hired, some of the reorganizational stuff. But what's interesting to me is the publishing and marketing. I'm confused where they're spending $40 million on marketing and publishing. Like, is that the management of like their websites and stuff? That still seems insane, because when else have we seen, like, I guess, you know what, they're probably I think publishing and marketing, that's where they're putting their CitizenCon costs. I see. Okay. Yep. Despite internalizing our Turbulent publishing services through the ROW from July, the bulk of our publishing and marketing operations continue to be run through the US, which accounted for 65% of the spend in this cost category. It should not be surprising that this spend category is increasing as our game reaches a wider audience, despite, from our perspective, it only just getting out of the prototyping phase. It is essential for us to support our expanding community and customer base while ensuring player engagement in the rich environment we are developing. Therefore, we continue to prioritize investment in our servers, platform, community tools to enhance the Star Citizen experience. So maybe publishing, they're also considering server costs, because they say they mention server costs in the same discussion as all of that. Sorry, I realize my camera's been covering it, but maybe that's partially why it is. But yeah, that's a huge chunk of their spend. Like it's $40 million for that. Only $70 million of their annual costs are for salaries paying for employees. So maybe they're putting that in there, like servers. I don't know. You'd think that would be in other dev costs. I'd have to see it broken down a little bit more. As you can see here, general and admin, they say that this here includes capital expenditure for hardware, software, fixtures, fittings, and offices. So again, servers, you think that, unless they have server infrastructure for like players in a separate category. Either way, it feels like maybe I just need to ask a couple clarifying questions. Like, are the servers people are playing on in the publishing category because you're publishing the game through the servers to people, or is that in the G&A section? Because that also is very cheap compared to what I would expect it to be. It's just not super clear. Either way, as you see this skyrocket in terms of costs, it's getting exponential. Okay, that's what this is, an exponential increase in spend. But they're not seeing an exponential increase in revenues. They're just not. And that's where they're running into trouble, because if the money they're bringing in is not increasing exponentially, or at least in line with the money that they are spending, that's where they can get into trouble. Because, you know, for a little while it stagnated, and then up here it did pretty well, but it's not growing at the same pace as their spend is growing from 2022 to 23. And going into 24 and 25, I'm sure that they are expecting a lot of money to be spent, or at least it will have already been spent by the time they disclose it. So all of this to say, I mean, I think that they just really, really need to get the game out the door, Squadron 42 out the door. And once they do that, that should represent a pretty major influx of cash. And I think that's why they're hoping that they can get it out the door, so that they can get a big wave of, you know, 100, 200, $300 million of revenue that they can then spend to finish up the persistent universe, and then launch that as its own living, breathing game. They can set up a subscription model to generate recurrent revenue and things like that, which they've already played around with. So, you know, all of this to say, it's actually quite simple. They just need Squadron 42 to get out the door and to sell well. That's what they need. And I think it could, from what I've seen, it looks pretty solid. But I mean, the reason that Star Citizen's a scam, Star Citizen is fake, the reason that's a meme at this point is because people have so little confidence in their ability to deliver a finished product anywhere near the timeline that they set for themselves. And, it's fine when you're raking in the dough through hundreds of millions of dollars of pledges. You can take your time and you can miss deadlines, but eventually you've got to kind of step it up and you've got to deliver on what you need to do, because once the money starts to slow or it's not growing as fast as your expenses are, playtime's over. We got to figure it out. And I think that's where they're at right now, is they just need to get this out the door so that they can get the cash to finish the game and then probably scale down. I mean, I don't think they should have anywhere near the employees that they have based on what I've seen of what they're putting across and delivering, but I guess time will tell. Either way, I mean, I think, Star Citizen is a really interesting game. I like a lot of what they do. I've played a good amount of it. I've played it on stream with you guys, and I think that there's some really interesting things that they're doing, but they've got to get to the point where they can actually deliver a finished product. I mean, they just have to. At some point after 12, 13 years, it's like, guys, what are we doing? Like, come on. We've got to do this. We've got to get this done. And I think they're finally frustrated with it too, which is why they did the managerial shakeups. And hopefully we see them actually get it across the board relatively soon. But it's going to be interesting. The thing I'm most interested in is when they do the shift from their current marketing strategy to the new one. Once they bring it to like Summer Games Fest or the Game Awards and announce it there to the broader public. That's going to be really interesting, but we'll see. Let me know what you think of all this in the comment section below. I'm interested. Does this surprise you that CIG needs money and is trying to get the game out the door so they can get more cash? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Much love. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.